The galaxy had watched humanity for nearly 200 years. When the first human ships crossed into Galactic Council space in the year 2347, the older species treated them like curious children. Humans were soft. They lived short lives. Their bodies broke easily. They needed oxygen and water and food in careful amounts. The Council recorded humanity as a Class 7 species, meaning they were considered weak, primitive, and incapable of surviving without protection. For decades, humanity accepted this judgment. They traded peacefully. They followed every rule. They asked permission before settling new worlds. They paid taxes to the Council. They sent their diplomats to meetings where they were ignored. They smiled when other species laughed at their small fleet and their fragile bodies. Ambassador spent 15 years requesting a seat at the inner council table. Every year the request was. Every year she returned home and told Earth's leaders to be patient. Patience, she said, would prove humanity's worth. The Empire did not believe in patience. They were a warrior species from the galaxy's outer rim. Their bodies stood 3 meters tall. Their skin was thick like armor. They had conquered 47 species before the Council forced them to stop, but they never forgot their hunger for war. They watched humanity's peaceful ways and saw weakness. They watched humanity's patience and saw cowardice. They decided that humans would make perfect slaves. The first attack came without warning. A fleet of 600 warships appeared above the human colony of New Geneva. The colony held 4 million people. They were farmers and scientists and families who had come to build a peaceful life on a green world far from Earth. They gave them 1 hour to surrender. When the colony's governor asked for time to evacuate civilians, the commander laughed. He ordered his ships to begin burning the surface. 3 million humans died in the first 20 minutes. The weapons turned forests into ash. They boiled lakes into steam. They melted cities into glass. A few 100,000 colonists escaped on emergency shuttles, but most were shot down before they could reach orbit. The youngest survivor was a 6-year-old girl named Maria Santos. She watched from a shuttle window as her entire world turned orange with fire. She did not cry. She was too shocked to cry. Earth received the news 4 hours later. The message came through quantum channels that could not be blocked. Every screen on the planet showed images of New Geneva burning. Every speaker played the screaming of dying colonists. The commander had recorded everything. He wanted humanity to see. He wanted them to be afraid. He ended his transmission with a simple demand. Humanity would surrender all their colonies within 30 days. They would accept rule. They would become slaves. If they refused, Earth would burn like New Geneva. Ambassador was in her office when the transmission ended. She sat in silence for a long time. Then she called an emergency meeting of the United Human Government. Presidents and prime ministers and generals gathered in the Great Hall beneath Geneva's mountains. They argued for hours. Some wanted immediate surrender. Some wanted to fight. Some wanted to beg the Council for protection. Listen to every voice. When the arguing finally stopped, she stood and spoke 3 words that changed everything. No more patience. Those 3 words ended 200 years of human restraint. Had spent her career studying the galaxy's powers. She knew the Council would not help. She knew they were strong. But she also knew something that no alien species had ever discovered. Humanity had been hiding, not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. They had built their true fleet in secret shipyards hidden in asteroid belts and gas giant moons. They had developed weapons that existed nowhere else in the galaxy. They had trained soldiers in methods so brutal that they had forbidden their own people from knowing. The public knew humanity had a fleet of 800 small defense ships. The true number was 27,000 warships, each one carrying weapons that could crack planets. The public believed human soldiers fought with standard energy rifles. The truth was far more terrifying. Human military scientists had spent decades developing technology that the galaxy considered impossible. They had built weapons that turned enemy ships inside out. They had created viruses that could infect any computer system. They had designed armor that healed itself and soldiers who could fight for days without rest. They had given humanity 30 days. Humanity responded in 6. On the first day, the human fleet emerged from hiding places across the galaxy. The Galactic Council detected them on every sensor, 27,000 ships appearing from nowhere. Every government sent urgent messages demanding explanations. Humanity ignored them all. The fleet gathered in formation near the border. At exactly midnight, Earth Standard Time, they crossed into enemy space. The home fleet was waiting for them. 12,000 warships, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built publicly. The admiral broadcast a message of mockery. He said human ships looked like toys. He said human weapons would bounce off armor. He ordered his fleet to prepare for easy victory. The battle lasted 43 minutes. When it ended, every ship was drifting metal wreckage. Human losses were 17 ships, 17 out of 27,000. On the second day, human ground forces landed on 4 military worlds. These were the planets where trained their soldiers. Each one held bases that had existed for centuries. Each one was defended by millions of warriors who believed themselves unbeatable. Human soldiers did not fight like the galaxy expected. They did not stand in lines and trade fire. They came in shadows. They appeared behind enemy forces. They used weapons that made no sound. By nightfall, all 4 worlds had surrendered. Generals who had never known fear suddenly understood it. The council called an emergency session. Representatives from 200 species gathered to discuss what was happening. They debated whether to intervene. The ambassador suggested sending peacekeepers. The delegate demanded that humanity stop immediately. But the human representative to the council, a young woman named Dr. Sarah, simply smiled. She told them that humanity was handling a private matter. She suggested they watch and learn. Then she left the chamber, while the galaxy's leaders sat in stunned silence. On the third day, human ships reached the inner systems. These were the ancient worlds where civilization had begun. Billions have lived there in great cities built from the bones of conquered species. The human fleet did not immediately attack. Instead, they waited. They broadcast a single message to every screen on every world. The message showed New Geneva burning. It showed the 3 million dead. It showed the 6-year-old girl watching her world die. Then it showed what human weapons had done to the fleet. The message ended with simple words. You have 6 hours to evacuate civilian areas. They did not evacuate. Their emperor broadcast his own message calling humans cowards and weaklings. He said honor demanded they stand and fight. He said civilians should take up weapons and kill every human who dared set foot on soil. He was still speaking when the first human missiles struck his palace. The explosion was visible from orbit. On the 4th day, human soldiers walked through the ruins of the capital. They did not kill civilians who surrendered. They did not torture prisoners. They simply moved forward unstoppable and silent. Warriors who attacked them died within seconds. Those who dropped their weapons were allowed to live. Human medical teams followed the soldiers, treating wounded alongside wounded humans. The galaxy watched this in confusion. They had expected revenge. They had expected genocide. Instead, they saw mercy mixed with absolute power. The new government surrendered on the 5th day. Their emperor was dead. Their fleet was destroyed. Their military worlds were occupied. They had no choice. Human diplomats met with leaders in a ruined city still smoking from battle. The terms were simple. The empire would pay compensation to every surviving colonist from New Geneva. They would disarm completely. They would never again threaten any species. In exchange, humanity would not destroy them. They agreed to everything. On the 6th day, the human fleet returned home. They passed through council space in perfect formation. Every species watched them go. No one tried to stop them. No one asked questions. The council held another emergency session that night. They voted unanimously to upgrade humanity's classification from Class 7 to Class 1, the highest designation possible. This classification had only been given to 3 species in galactic history. All 3 had eventually destroyed themselves through internal wars. The council wondered if humanity would follow that pattern. Ambassador returned to the council chamber 1 week later. She walked through silent corridors where species that had once ignored her now stepped aside with respect. She entered the great hall and took her seat at the inner council table, the seat she had requested for 15 years. No one objected. The ambassador asked her why humanity had hidden their strength for so long, considered the question carefully before answering. She explained that humanity understood something important about power. Having power was not the same as using power. Patience was not weakness. Restraint was not cowardice. Humanity had hidden their strength because they hoped they would never need it. They had tried peace first because peace was better than war. But when enemies killed innocent children, when enemies burned worlds for pleasure, when enemies mistook kindness for weakness, then humanity would show their true nature. And their true nature was terrifying. The galaxy never forgot the Six-Day War. Species that had laughed at humanity now taught their children to respect them. Empires that had considered invasion now sought alliance. Pirates and raiders who had hunted human ships now fled at the sight of them. The empire eventually rebuilt, but they never threatened anyone again. Their children grew up hearing stories about the humans who had shown mercy when they could have chosen destruction. Maria Santos, the 6-year-old survivor of New Geneva, grew up to become the commander of humanity's first diplomatic fleet. She traveled the galaxy representing her species. She carried no weapons and threatened no one. She simply talked and listened and built friendships between worlds. When aliens asked how she could serve peacefully after what she had witnessed, she gave the same answer every time. Humanity preferred peace. They worked toward peace. They sacrificed for peace. But if anyone harmed their families, burned their worlds, or killed their children, then humanity would show exactly why the galaxy should have feared them from the beginning. Not because humans were cruel, not because humans loved war, but because humans protected their own with a fury that no species could match. The Six-Day War proved this truth to a galaxy that had needed to learn it. Humanity's patience was not infinite. Their mercy was not guaranteed. Their power was not for display. But when someone finally snapped their patience, they moved with a speed and strength that made ancient empires tremble. And when the war ended, they put away their weapons and returned to building, creating, and dreaming of better futures. That was humanity's real power. Not just the ability to destroy, but the wisdom to choose construction over destruction. They could burn galaxies, but they preferred planting gardens. They could end civilizations, but they preferred building bridges. The Six-Day War was terrible and necessary, but it was not what defined humanity. What defined them was every peaceful day before and after, every hand extended in friendship, every life saved instead of taken. The galaxy understood this now, and they were grateful that humans preferred peace.